bird on my shirt and spider webs. I don't really know what's going on with the shirt. It was a gift, and I like it, but I never really know how to wear it. So I figured it has a spider web on it, so it's for Halloween. Okay, so welcome back to Q&A Quickie. Today we're going to talk about the difference between behavioralism. I said that right?
Yeah.
I tried to spell it earlier. Behavioralism. And cognition. Because pretty much everywhere we look online and in books and everywhere else, no one seems to know the difference. And no, I mean not no one.
A lot of people know the difference. No, a lot of people know the difference.
When I say no one, I mean it's too often.
Yeah.
I don't mean no one.
Well, because we've been talking for a long time on Albop, here's what personality type isn't, and here's what it is. And, you know, every time you go on Twitter or something, look up hashtag MBTI or something.
Oh, I don't anymore.
Or hashtag any type. Yeah, it's just bad. And, now...
Because of, yeah.
Lots of times, you know, there's all kinds of malice. All kinds of people trying to say, well, my type's better than that type, or oh, I hate all P's, or whatever. And that has nothing to do... Well, it's very little to do with behavioralism. People are going to... People are going to misunderstand personality typing because they're not nice people sometimes. But this is more of an innocent kind of thing, where Carl Jung, you know, almost 100 years ago, came up with all this awesome stuff, and then Briggs and Briggs-Myers came up, you know, they elaborated upon it, expanded upon it so much, and so then Albop is built off of their work. However, they're all gone right now, and... And now the internet has come, and it's great. The explosion of information. But the thing is, personality typing has gotten very, very popular. And to me, it's really exciting, because people want to understand themselves. They want to understand humanity. They want to understand everything.
Yeah, there's a real push for that in general, for people understanding themselves.
And I keep running all these different personality tests. There's some different interesting color ones. Some use different colors than others. I always thought it was cool trying to see more about myself that way, long before I knew much anything about Myers-Briggs or anything. It's really exciting trying to understand this stuff, but so often I'd be like, but that's not really me, or I'd be excited hoping that I'd get a result.
Oh, well, that covers this part of my character, but it doesn't show this side.
I felt like a lot of the tests oversimplified me, but then every time I got one that I thought showed some insight into me, that'd be really exciting. Now, cognitive psychology about how you think, you know, this kind of thing that Jung and Myers and Briggs-Myers worked with a lot. That's most exciting to me, because that seems to get down deeper. Did I say it wrong again? That's
okay.
I do that. Myers and Briggs.
It's confusing. Well, it's confusing because they call it Myers-Briggs typology indicator, and it was Briggs-Myers. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, I do that all the time.
It's really fun.
But anyway, that when it's typing the way you think, when it's analyzing the way you think, then that tends to get down deeper. Whereas other kinds of psychology that focus on your behaviors, well, two people might do the exact same behavior for very different reasons. And so those often, not always, but often are the kinds of tests and stuff that I feel like have ended up oversimplifying me. Now, the thing is, Jung and Myers-Briggs deals with cognitive psychology. Now, I think I'm going to mention Kersey by name, because he's a really cool guy. He used Myers-Briggs type indicator and used Myers-Briggs same letters in behavioral, non-cognitive psychology.
And he specified it was behavioral.
Yeah, because pretty much the technique he took was, I don't know if I can really get to, I don't know if I can really be able to analyze well how someone thinks, but I can sure analyze how they behave. And he was able to do a lot of good for a lot of people by using the same letters, E-I-N-S, as the same letters as Myers-Briggs, but applying it to behavioral psychology instead of cognitive psychology. And so now with the internet, this has gotten very, very popular, and it should be. It's awesome, but you have a lot of people who want to use it as a way to say, here's why I'm better than this person who beat me up in elementary school, you know? Now, all these people who aren't being very nice about it, and they end up wildly oversimplifying it, and so a lot of the worst oversimplifications that we see come when people are mixing up behavioral versus cognitive psychology. For instance, a lot of people say, all INFJs will do this, all ESPs will do that. That's behavioral.
Yes.
The thing is, cognitively
speaking, you do your behaviors.
Exactly. Now, cognitively speaking, in terms of what Jung and Myers-Briggs actually did, as opposed to the newer versions that use the same letters for behavioral psychology, cognitively speaking, two people might do very, very different... So say they have two INFJs.
Well,
I haven't mentioned my favorite INFJ on here, have I? I'm saying favorite sarcastically.
Oh, your favorite to bring up?
It's okay to bring him up. It's not so
I
politically
brought him
incorrect.
up in the one of the posts.
Okay, yeah.
With pictures.
Right, yes. Der Führer himself, Der Führer, Adolf Hitler, and myself, both INFJs.
He brings him up a lot because
it shows how two people of the same type can be so different.
Well, and because people have this image of INFJs as both being
so heroic.
Both being can do no wrong and being kind of soft. And so he's a good example because he was neither soft nor good.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
and yet in a creepily compelling way, I can understand a lot the way he thinks because our cognition is actually the same. Our cognition steps the same, and it's very intriguing to me reading about his decisions and his reactions to things and all kinds of stuff. It's very intriguing to me, but wildly different decisions, wildly different actions. Two people of the same type can do wildly different actions, and yet it'll be for the same reasons because their cognition is the same. Now, likewise, two people of different types can do the exact same action, but for wildly different reasons because it's different cognition types, different reasons for thinking, different motivations. And so the thing is, if you start judging people by behaviors, then when two people do the same action, even if it's different personality types and they're doing it for different reasons, doing it in different ways, and they do the same action, you think, oh, they must be the same type. And so it's much more, it invites stereotype a lot more because you're going something much more surfacey, their actions as opposed to their reasons and ways of doing those actions.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you at all. I just got excited. Okay, well, so one thing that's cool about cognition, and so often when you go to behaviorally oriented websites or this or that,
some are good, some aren't.
Yeah. Well, so that's the thing is when they're behaviorally based, whether they recognize it or not, and as opposed to just mean or stereotypical or whatever, I mean, not necessarily mean, but like.
Some are mean.
Some are very mean.
Some are mean.
Some are really ridiculous. But when they're behaviorally based, then they'll usually be hitting on all these things and they do stuff like this and they do stuff like this.
S's tend to be more athletic. They tend to be more practical.
Well, I mean, sometimes even things more reasonable than that. I mean, like I went to one today. I'm not gonna that somebody had asked me about, but anyway. But I mean, it was one of the better ones that I've seen. But it was like, INFJs. They, can tend to be more goofy than ENFJs, and they like watching movies and stuff. And
I like being goofy, but I wouldn't say we're more or less goofy than ENFJs. It depends a lot on the ENFJ.
Yeah.
But on some very goofy ones, and some very not goofy ones.
But the thing is, they kept hitting on all this surface stuff and not getting to the core. And
which is hard.
Yeah, but the cognition is the core. And so often, a really quick way to get to the core of things are, the cognition process itself, but also the type specialization is a really quick way to get to the core of what is this type. What really matters to them? What will they always go back to? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, in defensive behavioral psychology, there are things behavioral psychology can do that cognitive psychology cannot do as well. Especially, behavioral psychology is really, really good at helping people fix bad behaviors and bad habits and addictions and all kinds of things.
Well,
and so I don't want to try to say that one is better than the other, but they're different. And so people keep mixing them up online a lot.
Well, and
in books even.
And ideally, cognition won't stop there. It will be able to handle and deal with behaviors too. I mean, I think think what we do handles behaviors
naturally, if
too.
you rip a weed up by the roots, you can get rid of the whole weed.
Yeah.
And so if you can get down to cognition, I would argue that cognition is more effective at fixing behaviors. The problem there is that sometimes you can't get down to cognition because you have all these bad behaviors in the way. So often you have to start with behavioralism and work with therapy and helping people with bad behaviors, or it doesn't really like bad behaviors, but it's self-destructive behaviors. You have to start dealing with some of those behaviors before you even think about dealing with someone's cognition. And so cognition is a root. So taking care of that, you can affect behavior so much better if you can get to it. And sometimes unhealthy behaviors can block even getting to it in the first place. So behavioral psychology to the rescue. And so they each have their place, but they're different places and they're different things. And so we were talking about, Kalisa's worried about what videos are going to be in the sidebar, because so often, anytime we have one of our videos and look at the videos in the sidebar on YouTube, we're like, oh gosh. But the thing is, some of them are malicious, but a lot of them are malicious, but a lot of them are just...
They're pretentious. And
and any discipline's going to invite pretension.
Yeah.
But the thing is that a lot of them just innocently, and a lot of tests and websites just innocently don't even realize they're mixing up behavioral and cognitive, and so they get confused. And so a lot of stuff, and again, Kersey, as cool as he was, didn't really help by using the same letters as Myers-Briggs, the same E-I-S, all that. And so that can be confusing because some tests will test. So, for instance, I'm an INFJ cognitively. Am I an INFJ behaviorally? That depends on the day. Depends on if I had a good meal last hour. Depends on.
So, sorry.
I mean, your personality type can change behaviorally every minute, depending on how fast you're changing. So people often ask, does personality type change? Oh, sorry.
I was going to say.
Go on, say it.
Sorry, that's why I interrupted, because I was like, oh, okay.
Go for it.
Anyway, okay, but yeah, so people ask us all the time, and we went over this in the other Q&A, in the long Q&A video, but people ask us all the time, but does cognition change during your life? And people often get upset when they hear that we say it doesn't.
Because it seems limiting.
Yeah, it seems extremely limiting. But the thing is, behavioralism changes all the time throughout your life.
And hopefully should.
You know, what you do changes all the time, and based on environmental factors and how much you grow, you know.
For instance,
that's the thing is, these things shouldn't limit growth, they should enable growth, you know.
Yeah, and when I took a Myers-Briggs test, the first one I ever took, I think, 10 years ago or something, no, more than that, I was very pleased to have scored near the middle on almost all the letters. I thought, yeah, I'm a balanced person. Now, the test was very behavioral, and it probably was good for me to want to get scored to the middle. And so lots of times you have people saying, well, I'm kind of even on N versus S. And the thing is, cognitively, it's a binary system. Which one do you do first? You either do N first or you do S first. And it's not, oh, I'm kind of iffy on these. No, you one or the other cognitively, and that can be surprising to some people. And so behaviorally, I would hate to be limited to any of the 16 types because I want to be able to explore the benefits of all behaviors.
Yeah.
Cognitively, every type has access to every strength, every talent, every good goal, everything. It's just we each approach it in different ways that reflect what's naturally most important to you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, as far as, you know, not wanting to be too much one or the other. I mean, just mere months before we started A Little Bit of Personality, I had this Facebook status update on, oh well, you know, I used to be classically ENTP, but then, you know, I looked at all these things, and now I really don't feel like I fit into any of them. I mean, this was months before we started out.
I used to say all the time, you know, maybe I tested as INFJ. I was like, well, not. And I was like, you know, maybe I started as INFJ before, but I would go on personality page. And like, that's the closest one to me, I guess.
We don't really mention
them
usually.
Like, personality page is good.
Personality page is good.
It's behavioralist.
The one I grew up with.
It's very behavioralist from what I recall.
Yeah.
Very behavioralist. It might not realize this, but it's very behavioralist from what I recall. And so I'd read through the INFJ page, and like, well, that's the closest to me of all of these, but it's still so not me. And like, not at all. And it was the closest there was. And like, so I was like, well, you know, maybe when I was younger, that's where I started out. And since then, I've grown and developed and branched out. Well, behaviorally, hopefully I have grown and developed and branched out. Cognitively, I'm a solid INFJ, and that's no limitation, because I can do anything that anyone else can do, I'll just do it in a different way. All types can do anything anyone else can do, just do it in a different way. Yeah.
I was saying, too, on that Facebook post that time that, you know, I was going off on, well, you know, the complaints that we always get about the way that it's done other places, that you know, oh, T's seem like jerks and F's seem, I forget the word I used, but it wasn't complimentary, but,
Floofy, yeah.
That's quite a dance. It's a beautiful dance. Exactly. Were you saying something else? I lost my
Yeah, well, I was talking about different aspects of illustrating more this difference between cognitive and behavioral. You're talking about the Facebook thing, and people saying, you were thinking a couple months before Alba saying, I used to be an ENTP.
Yeah, well, so that's the thing is, when it's done behaviorally, you're like, I don't want to be either of these.
Don't want to be limited to that. You know,
or, you know, even if they're good, then saying, okay, well, yeah, that changed throughout my life. Yes, I used to be more socially extroverted. Yes, I used to be more about getting things done, you know, and it's like all these behaviors are
now so often
the kind of things that change.
People come to us saying, you typed this character wrong, you typed that character wrong, and they'll bring reasons why. They'll say, because in this scene this character did this or said that, and the thing is, you know, if I watched that one scene in isolation from any other, and if I was typing based on their behaviors, not their reasons for those behaviors, then yeah, I'd agree with you. But then if you take this scene in isolation, they're a totally different type. Or take that scene over here, over there, they're a third different type. And so depending on which pet scenes people choose to pick out, the same character will appear to be wildly different types because they're focusing on what they do and not looking at why they do it. And
yeah, what's going on in their heads behind it.
now, probably for a different video, we could talk about, well, then how do you tell what someone's thinking?
Yeah,
how can you see that? How do you see what someone's thinking? But there's always been telltale signs. Like I said, have an INFJ and an ESTP in the same room doing the exact same action. They will unavoidably do it in different ways. For instance, we run into a lot of ENFPs who, for different cultural reasons in our culture, tried to say they're ENTPs. They think that to be an ENFP means you're not cool. Because ENTP is a swashbuckler, right? And so they feel like, but I want to be a swashbuckler. You can be a swashbuckler. You can be snarky. You can be fun. You can be rough-edged. But a lot of ENFPs think they can't because of stereotypes. And so they want to prove that they're an ENTP. And they say, oh, I'm so cold and logical. Oh, I'm so this. And all these ways they want to try to prove they're a TNF. But the way they say it is always so unavoidably classically ENFP. Doing it, yeah. And we talk a little bit about how it's so ENFP, but that would be getting sidetracked on one example. My point is, when I'm writing fiction, when we're writing fiction, we have characters of lots of different personality types, and it's exciting to write them as their personality type. And yet, nonetheless, I'll still be coming at them in an INFJ way. You know, I can try to have my ISTP characters be very convincingly ISTP, for instance. And yet, the approach the narrative will take and everything, I don't know. My point is, it's not a limitation. It's just my fingerprints will be all over it, and I can get better and better at those fingers. I can bring in the strengths of other types, but it will still always be from an INFJ starting point, and that's not a bad thing. It reflects what my mind naturally prioritizes. There are so many things to prioritize in life, and each personality type naturally prioritizes some over the others, and that's because of who we are and what we deep down unconsciously want.
Yeah.
And so
our minds work, which are equal good things.
And so again, these aren't limitations in your behaviors. It's just saying there will be telltale fingerprints on all our behaviors.
Yeah. I was going to say, though, as far as writing goes and acting goes, and I'm sure this is a post for another day, but it is cool how much the human mind can understand and visualize what it's like to be another person, to be a totally different type.
You can understand what another type. You'll still be coming at that understanding in your own type.
Yeah, that's, I mean, as we've gotten really into facial typing and stuff, it's really awesome seeing how many people play characters that are totally different types than they are, and how great they do at it, how consistent
how they totally get into that character and are so convincing about it.
And so it's very cool how the human mind can form consistent characters, consistent, oh wow, this is the way this person's thinking, even though that's not the way I would be thinking in that situation. You know, the way we can figure out what's going on with other people is very cool. And so that shouldn't be a limitation either. Like, oh man, I can't write any characters beyond what I am. You know, certainly.
I'm trying to think of a way to explain how it's not a limitation. It's actually a good thing. But the fact that it reflects what your subconscious psyche ultimately wants, you know, means that embracing your own type helps you get what your subconscious psyche ultimately wants. And while it's trying to say, oh, trying to force somebody to be a different type, you're going to be getting your own way. So, for instance, you like being an ENTP, right?
Yes.
I like being an INFJ. I love that she's an ENTP, but I like being an INFJ. We have friends of all these different types, and we love the types they are. It's not that I like being an INFJ because I like INFJ better than ENTP. No, I like that I get to be an INFJ. I like to be an INFJ, and she likes to be an ENTP because it lets me exercise me.
Yeah.
And if I tried to be a different type, it wouldn't be me.
And so, the things that are most important to you are INFJ things.
They are.
And that shouldn't be changed.
The thing is, see, I can try to get really good at basketball. I can try to get really good at curling. I can try to get really good at handwriting. I can try to get really good at all these things, but it doesn't. So anything is open to me. Anything is open to me. But I'll do it in an INFJ principles based way because that's just what I want to do. And so again, this isn't a limit on me. It's a way. It's me. It's a way to allow myself to be me. And so there is no action, no goal, no anything that's off limits to me. And yet, understanding my cognition frees me to be me about doing it, and that I can always be me while doing it.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts about?
I think we've covered that kind of thing a lot.
So saying that the fact that cognition doesn't change is not a limitation. It's a permission. It's an opportunity to be you. But your behavior, let it change.
Yes.
And behavioralism and cognition.
So some people would say, please change it. But anyway.
Well, it's always good to try to improve it.
Probably if you're watching this video, it's likely you would not be one of those people.
But anyway, just that there's a lot of confusion about it, and so keep an eye out for that. Yeah. Anytime you're confused, be like, well, but this site says this, or wait, you really think that character is that personality type?
You know?
Exactly. Wait, yeah, that character made that decision. How could he really be that personality type? Be careful about behavior versus cognition, and read those 3 dictionary posts and read them again. You know, and
that's what I was about to say too.
And you'll slowly start to notice the telltale fingerprints of people prioritizing one cognition step over another. And go on.
Yeah, well, because that's the thing is I'm sure we're going to go into more how to tell the difference, you know, how to tell what's going on in someone's cognition. I'm sure we'll go into that more.
That'll be exciting, go into more.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, you know, you can think of doing it, then it's harder to explain, but, like so many things. But
explaining it helps us understand it better. And so,
yeah, that's true. But yeah, if you're trying to do it better, to recognize how people think more,
those 3 dictionary posts, get to know them.
The cognition process and stick figures and type specializations especially.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
What do all these letters mean anyway? Yeah, that'll get it for you too. But
what all these letters mean helps cut through some of the stereotypes that will creep in and then creep in again and then creep in again about what these letters actually mean.
Yeah,
no, I'm sorry, J does not mean more organized.
Yeah, that's really good for the letters in isolation, but for combinations, I would go with type specializations.
And cognition process. Cognition process is such a big part of the understanding.
Yeah,
cognition.
Which I would love to do, I don't know, even just a part 2 and go into more depth of that, because there was so little I was able to cover in just that one
But it's
post.
a good foundation. It's a good foundation. So anyway, cognition, behavior, there's my other hand. Cognition, behavior, both good things, both necessary in their place, different. And a lot of websites, a lot of them innocently mix them up. And so then there's a lot of confusion. Yeah. So yeah. So
cognition's all about what's going on in your
mind,
behind
why you do things, and how you do things, not just what you do. Your motives and your reasons and your approach to everything. So yeah.
Yay! Okay.
That was long, but it was a good important one.
No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.
And keep asking more questions.
Yes.
We have a lot more questions to catch up on, but keep asking more, and we'll be able to keep catching up on them.
Love you guys.
Bye.